Okay, let's start. Another lecture, another interview with a star, the beloved and one and only Mariusz Wilczyński. Welcome, Mariusz, to the stage. Two words in relation to what I was talking about. Here you can see the director who is always willing to talk to the media, and on behalf of the journalists, we really respect that and we thank you. The discussions are always fascinating with you, regardless whether it's 20 seconds or 2 hours. I'm leaving you in the best of hands. Thank you. After such a recommendation, I don't know what to say. Will you be discussing with me, or do you want to talk to me? Okay, once again, hello. This is quite a special situation because last year I had the meeting with the viewers. There was a screening of my film, so I understand this and I'm cover. I will try to dress differently next year. Today I would not say it's a lecture. However, today's meeting, today's tale, I would want to. I would want to tell that tale, or maybe spin that tale basing on what I see during the workshop of Sławomir Idziak, and maybe at a certain counterpoint. When I see all the equipment that you have here, that crowds of young adepts of film art are working with, they use, then I have this reflection. I made my film. I could draw my film on a small desk in my workshop. Let me sit down. I did not need any. I did not any thousands of newest types of contraptions. This is a freedom that animators have, and I think this is what I wanted to tell you about, because I think that I would like to encourage young people who would want to work in animation. I think my path is a bit like this. I'm a self-learned person. Everything I achieved was I got to that drawing at home. I of course I will boast a bit, but I made a film. The Kill It and Leave This Town is a movie which won all the festivals in Poland, and suddenly it started to be treated as like a normal movie to which people would go and buy tickets. So I think that maybe I will blaze the trail for other animators with that movie. That you can create an animated movie which is better than like I would say normal movies with actors. It's often very personal, and it's very art house like, and it's created in very close knit and comfortable conditions. Maybe I'm talking here, but maybe you want to ask me something. Is somebody asking, or are these voices from behind the door? I'm interested. What ticks you? What's your poison? What you like among the international movies? What do you think is wow? Animated? Yes. Well, it will be a bit like this. That I think it will not be interesting portrait of an artist, because I don't watch films. I don't watch animated movies, and the normal movies maybe once a week. I go to the cinema maybe once a month. So it is usually rather like that I will be I that I'm a bit of an alien. I'm a very introverted guy that who thinks about himself and his own stuff, and that's really what I like. I like to watch real life, and getting out of that life the most important things, and also analyzing all those things that touch us upon us in life, the joys and the sad moments. I'm not being inspired by other movies. I can tell you what I liked, but I like the things which are not mainstream. I really like an artist. I showed that to my kids here, whom I try to teach here during the workshops. The movies of Blue Mood, these animations on the buildings. And I'm really wondering that something like that. I'm not wondering, but I'm sorry that something like that does not stand a chance to get an Oscar. For me, an Oscar in animation should be given to things that break certain conventions, that are an avant-garde. Not some safe stories about mice and cats. I like Mutant Blue. I like from the classical animated movies. I don't know. Oh, bloody world. I like Tango by Rybczynski. I think this is an eternal movie. This is like a movie. Mm, I think it's so strong because it's so imperfect, because you can see some places where the actress is about to sing to sit. I like Czekała's film, the Roll Call, a very old movie. I recommend that. No, but I live with the music, and somehow I do not draw inspiration from other movies. Of course, recently there was the film Flea, but I thought it will get an Oscar because everything was there in that movie. A story of a gay person who runs away and etc. etc. It's a great movie. I don't know if you've seen that. I recommend it to you. My authorities were always musicians. I mean, the people whom I looked up to were musicians. Especially when I was a kid, I was, like Nalepa, for example. I would love to be a musician. I said that recently, I think, to my friends, that when musicians meet, they want to play together. And when they drink some wine and some vodka, they take instruments and they play, and that's incredible. Cannot believe, I cannot see the animators sitting together and, let's animate together. But what am I supposed to tell you? I wanted to say my story was very simple. By accident, I stumbled upon that if you draw five pages, it will move. And when I started to draw, it was all made on the simplest, like just on a piece of paper, A4 format. It was all drawn in such a way. And I think that this is a proof that equipment is very important. Of course, this is all very important, but the most important thing is what you have to say. And that's why animation, I think, is the most fantastic thing in film, because it can transgress all borders and there's no gravity which you can feel in the acting film, and you have a freedom because you do not need you need no money at all to create movies at your home. Of course, later when I did Kill It and Leave This Town, then I selected a crew, because it was in post-production. It was done on very good computers. The whole film was drawn in house conditions, and that's incredible. That I'm teaching in a musical school. No, sorry, in a film school, and I'm lucky enough so that the animation was not really. It was a bit of an underdog in the school, because the director was the directing department was also important. And now in our school, the young kids who are drawing at home, it's in their own laptops, they're getting the awards. They're getting, and on some simple tablets, they get awards all around the world. And our students are in Cannes every year. Ania Ruszewicz, Basia Rupik, whose animation we saw yesterday in Smoczyńska's film, Magda Magwendowska, who's living in Berlin right now and draws beautiful movies. Tomek Popakul too. I think that's it. I said it's interesting because we can do it at home. And tell me, what's interesting to you? Do you want me to tell you how I made a film, Kill It and Leave This Town, or you know that? Please don't sleep. That's a very good voice. Okay, let me remind you then that the movie Kill It and Leave This Town was supposed to be a 10-minute etude in the beginning. And this process took so long because I was drawing for 14 years, because for the first time in my filming history, I started to cooperate with people. All the movies until now, I drew myself, and then I asked Tomasz Stańko to compose the music, which was of course a big privilege that such a great artist wanted to compose. I usually didn't have the money, so I had to pay a penalty that every day at 5 a.m. That Stańko would call me at 5 o'clock in the a.m. every day, and he said, "Man, you're so lucky that I want to work with you," which was of course true. But when I started to make the film Kill It and Leave This Town, I thought it's going to be a bit longer than my previous movies, and I thought that for the first time, because I never used voice, I had Magdalena Ruszka in Kizia Mizia, and then I deleted that, so there are only just some strange sounds. And here I wanted to have a character who was very important in my life. I was raised by my mother, who was alone, and she had a really hard life. And quite often, when she was tired and she wanted to have some free time for herself, she would put on long plays with fairy tales or stories for kids read by Irena Kwiatkowska. So when I was starting to started to draw Kill It and Leave This Town, I wanted to have Irena Kwiatkowska. I wanted to have one protagonist who talks, and I was aware that because this is a person who was very important for me, she was like a grandma to me. But I was aware that she was not my grandma, so I knew she's very old, and she's not my grandma at all. So I went to Skolimów. I bought 100 red roses. I was afraid what she would feel like, because I knew that she's already in bad shape and she fainted, etc. But she was in great shape when I met her. I must tell you that entering the Skolimów old artist house. Have you been in Skolimów? It's incredible. This is the strongest film about the passing, because you go there in a certain. You go down there and there's like a canteen, and they looked at them, and you look at them and say that these are all grandpas of your favorite actors, and suddenly you realize that they are the actors. They're not their grandpas, because of course in the film you could see those actors who are eternally young, but now they're in the age and this sudden contractions, this rush of time with those 30 years passing in a blink of an eye makes a huge impression. So Irena Kwiatkowska was in a super form. She was afraid of me because I had my... she's like really small. She's a very delicate old lady, 150 centimeters tall. I've managed to record her. She didn't want to sing the song "Love Will." We had to provoke her to sing that song. She said she will not sing the song "The Love Will Forgive You Everything," because Jordanka sang that, and she, as an actress, doesn't want to sing that. She said, oh yeah, and she sang that because I had to sort of I used a ruse to make her sing it. Why am I talking about that? Because when I had Irena Kwiatkowska, I started to think that it would be good to have a male partner to her, and that was. I want to tell the story here now because I was the casting director. I think I did everything in that movie, and I was wondering who would work well with the voice of Irena Kwiatkowska, and with the image to. And the first person who came to my mind was Zapasiewicz, and he was alive at that time. He was still alive, but I was thinking Zapasiewicz, Kwiatkowski. There was no chemistry. Zapasiewicz is great, but he's like too serious, too moody. And another person that came to my mind was Kobuszewski. but then I sort of put them against each other. Kobuszewski, Kwiatkowska, it goes towards cabaret. It's a bit too light of situation. Then I was thinking about Pokora. Nope, that didn't work out too. And then I had some crazy idea that came up with the idea that it would be Bartoszewski, a politician. Do you remember? He was a very fast talker, and here my producer Ewa Puszczyńska gave me this smart answer. But he's an actor. He will not. You cannot control him. And I said, well, okay, yeah, true. And I could not get anyone, and suddenly I realized Wajda, and I knew that it's a bingo. Andrzej Wajda and Irena Kwiatkowska. That this duet will it will lift Irena Kwiatkowska. It adds gravity. Whatever I come up with, with his surname, he will carry that. It's one of the few he's one of the few Polish icons in the world with this. I know, because then our film was going around the world, and it was the only voice people could discern. Not Irena Kwiatkowska, or Janda, who got a Golden Palm in Cannes, but Andrzej Wajda. And when we were in the East, like in Russia, Daniel Olbrychski was another person. And so Wajda, I knew that it's a great idea. I didn't know how to do that because I didn't know Andrzej Wajda personally. So here I was helped by Paweł Edelman, a great DOP. Edelman went to Grudziądz to the set, and they said, I will talk to Andrzej because they are friends. And I'll do that, and I'll get you in, because I wanted to give the voice to the character, who's on one hand is a cartoon character resembling Catcher Donald, but an old character like that, and on the other side he's a Polish uprising fighter. Is it boring for you? No, thank you. So he went there and he didn't call me. So finally I called him and said, the situation is that Janda is broke down because her husband died. They were shooting Tatarak in Grudziądz. Andrzej is also in bad mood, and he will not approach the director and tell him that, would you like to be in the film in a cartoon of a colleague? So I wrote a letter, and I sort of motivated that it's not a joke, that he has a funny voice, and that it's going to be a cartoonish character that's going to be funny. But I said that it's my rebellion against pushing old people from the public space in general, yes, and everywhere. I don't know, wherever I went, all around the world. And I motivated it, and I got one of the more beautiful letters from Wajda, which starts, Dear Mariusz, after 53 years of working as a director, I thought nothing will surprise me. And you surprised me. And then it went so that he wrote that he agrees to participate in my film, but he knows he's a very bad actor, and I should not discuss with him because he's been a director for 53 years, so he knows. So he suggests Marek Kondrat. And that was a success that I got Wajda, but Wajda and not Wajda. So then I was really struggling for Andrzej Wajda to participate in my movie. It was very comical too, because Andrzej agreed, and then he refused 3 days before the recording, and agreed and then refused, and it was 10 times like this. One, he didn't call me. Everything was prepared. Studio I bought for him. I knew that nobody wanted nobody wanted money. It was like a common action. I bought an old whiskey in Marek Kondrat's shop, and when I was leaving to the studio in Warsaw, the phone called, and Krystyna Zachwatowicz said, I'm giving you the husband, and we started the same discussion as always. Mariusz, unfortunately, I can't be in your film. And then I was desperate already and said, Master, why? The studio is people are waiting. You agreed, you read those dialogues. And he said, you know what, yes, I didn't take part in the Warsaw Uprising. And I knew that in 5 seconds I have to come up with something, because he would say, I'm sorry, that's it, I won't be. But this film is not about you. You're just playing a role there. Mm-hmm. Well, you're right. And the master came, and as a great global director with a lot of experience, he played horribly, because we were adding this to Irena Kwiatkowska's sound, and we added that, and it didn't get any interaction with the dialogue. It was stiff. And then I used his proposal and the suggestion of Andrzej Wajda, and I went to Marek Kondrat, who did not say no. I think because Wajda recommended him, because he already rejected everything at that time, and we got those tracks in parallel, every word, because all the text that Wajda said was written down, and then we were editing it in such a way that in collodation neither Andrzej and Marek could not say which one is which, and it all started to click. And that was the way of creating these characters. This is quite a beautiful anecdote. It's true. How I came up with this protagonist. Have you seen Kill It and Leave This Town? You know, the protagonist for the majority of the movie is hidden behind the newspaper. I will not spoil that film for you. The protagonist behind the newspaper. I came up with this idea. You asked me. I mean, I'm inspired by life. I'm working in a film school in which I live in the suburbs of Warsaw. So sometimes I go in with the car. Sometimes I go with the train. Coming back from Warsaw Film School on a train, I went into the compartment, but there was a guy sitting behind the newspaper for the whole time. This guy was sitting behind the newspaper, so it was like he didn't bother me. And when we got from Łódź to Warsaw, his mobile phone played. There was still like old Nokia, and we got the Vabank. I said, oh no, but maybe some friend from film school. And I'm sitting there, and suddenly this guy spectacularly slowly dropped down his the newspaper, and it was Jan Macholski. I said, for the whole time I was sitting with Jan Macholski, I didn't know it's him, but it's a great idea for a movie, that we're hiding a protagonist who, when you remove that newspaper, you see who he is. So that's what it looked like. Do you have some other questions? Don't sleep. Smile at the author. So every time, like that movie, because I want this film, our discussion of ours. I want this discussion to encourage you to do your own thing. I did my movie, Kill It and Leave This Town. I did 14 years. That's what the media says. But the truth is that the first 7 years, I was doing totally with no money, and I did it alone. And I didn't even know whether it will be a movie. I knew it's gonna be. It was fun because I know nobody's waiting for this movie. I did it at my own tempo, without any producers, without any pressure. I was a free man. For me, freedom, creative freedom, is something most important. That's why I know everybody wants to make movies with us. I would like to draw the first things myself. I try to. I mean, this film of ours earned a lot of money, so that's good. But you always enter in the production as late as possible, especially because the producers want to be creative producers, which is nice. But I'm a egoist. I'm a centered myself, and this is what I would like to do. I was drawing and getting all those actors, and they wanted to work free of charge on this film. He didn't know me. Nobody knew that I made some short animations. Nobody is interested in that really. These are like insider things, insider achievements. and no actor wanted money. I just convinced them, but by giving them the script. And I just want to say that if you really want something, you can do everything. When I got the phone number to Krystyna Janda, which I didn't know that I should have called the agency. The agent should ask Janda, and then the agent should answer to him. But when I thought that I have to have Janda, it has to be Janda. I made it like this, that I had a colleague who was dating her assistant, and I got her phone number and I called her. And absolutely like cheeky, I said, "Hi, I'm Mariusz Wilczyński. I'm an author of animated movies. Would you agree to play your voice, the voice, to give the voice to the main role, to the protagonist?" And he, like, nothing, and the noise, and she says, "Excuse me." So it was a pretty chilling discussion. I was quite stressed out because I knew I was talking to one of the best and most prominent Polish actresses. She said, "Dear sir, you've managed to get in touch with me. I will give you my email address. Send me the script, and don't call me anymore. I will call you back." So I sent the script to Janda, and on the second day I got this email. I got this, and the next day in the morning, the script was like 60 pages long. "Dear sir, I read the script. You amazed me. I'm at your disposal." And this way, not having any money, there was no talk about money with Janda. You know that you know how much you would normally pay to Janda or Konrad. It's like 1 million zlotys per day. All these actors agreed to my idea, and it was not the idea that I'm like a great fat big man and I'm smiling and I have dreads. Like they just had to get the script, and it was the script. I mean, I was distinguished. The biggest honor for me was when Konrad played Andrzej Wajda, he said, "I wanted to play something also as Marek Konrad. Give me something." Really, I was sort of shocked. "Marek, everybody knows that Marek Konrad does not play anymore." No, I will play in your film." And he declared, and he played in the next film. He will be the main protagonist in my next movie. And then suddenly I realized I was really humbled. I had a problem because all the actors didn't want money. So none of the actors wanted money. So I was buying wine and giving them. So, of course, not in Marek Konrad's film. I was buying in Konrad's magazine, but I didn't know what to give to Marek Konrad. But they didn't want anything. They believed that, and they entered all this. So, for example, when Marek Konrad said that okay, give me some role. I want to play as Marek Konrad. I immediately came up with the idea of the parents. It was all driven by emotion. The casting is always driven by my emotion. It might be non-professional, however, I don't care a bit. What does it mean to be professional? Okay, screw professionalism. I had the role of the father and the mother, and I wanted the father and the mother to be played by people that I would really like and respect. I would really like my father to be like Marek Konrad, who, when he said, "I don't play, I don't play." If he hates all this glamour of this profession, of this world, I have a similar reflection when I had to go around with my film around festivals. I hate those fake smiles, fake friendships. Of course, sometimes they're true, but in general, I just he decided to resign, and he resigned. And I would like my father to be like that. If he gives word, he will keep to this word. So I was absolutely thrilled. I would like to select the mother that will be the best woman in the world, and I knew it has to be Anna Dymna, who is, I don't know if you know Anna Dymna to such an extent, her life, her artistic life. It's a fantastic person who could sort of role in this in fame, and she devotes half of her life to children who are in terminal state, in some horrible health situations, really bad mental illnesses. once I followed her to such a center, and it destroyed me. You can see nothing worse than children in a terminal disease. That's something that breaks your soul. I remember how Anya behaved there. That was incredible because I entered there. I wanted to be so good, delicate with her, and she said, "Oh, hello, my little zombie," and they were so happy that treated them so well. She's the perfect person, and I wanted her to play the mother. She's like such a good person. She really, I really look up to her. I can't be as good as Marek Kondrat or Anna Dymna, and that's why I cast them, and they played very well. And they played very well. For example, then I saw what means great acting, because they were recording in a very small room, one per 1.5 meter, and not them now was always like a big lady, so they were like almost touching themselves in the studio. They were squeezed in, and they had something very sad to read out. And Anna Dymna remembered the songs of Dymny. I don't know if the songs of Dymny, they are like pretty bawdy songs. I mean, and she started to sing these songs, and I said, Anya, I found this text too. I'm sorry, a dialogue that Marek says to you, goodbye, Barbara, and you say Mirek, and that's the end, and that's the part of the movie. I said, okay, let's do it. Stop. And immediately they played that, and then I felt, what does it mean, the power of acting? That they were like having fun, singing bawdy songs. Yeah, and suddenly stop, and you're back in the mood, and it played in such a way that the air stands still. So I had to get all those actors and convince them with my script. I don't remember what else do I remember. I remember Barbara Kraftówna very well, who played my mom, and I tried to convince her for a very long time, and she didn't want to do this. She agreed, and I got her to the studio, and our studio was very, very poor. You would go down the stairs to the cellar. In the cellar, you had the studio in the cellar. Kraftówna was already a woman of age, so when she recorded what she had to record, because it was incredible, because how it is in those studios, there are people who record everything, commercials, voiceover, whatever. They're indifferent to emotions. They have to be professionals. Turn on, record, turn off, turn on, record, turn off. And I remember when Kraftówna played her role, there was this silence, and all those technicians, all the people who were there had tears in their eyes, as if they are broken in half. I don't know, as if something like that happened. Those who saw the film, you can see that role. That's the last discussion, my last discussion with the mother. The discussion which I'm not proud of, but that's how it was. And so it's a deathbed dialogue. And I was walking her out through, on those stairs. She was so fragile. We were waiting for the taxi, and I was moved by this. And she said, I said something like, Barbara, that you played beautiful. It was so moving. And she said, you know what? But I did it for yourself and for my son, because he died last month in Canada, and the urn with his ashes just came, and that's where I felt that it's so full of emotions that I managed to get all the people to get on with their emotions. So nobody wanted money because it was so emotional for them. They would take a fee. I mean, with a new film, probably that will be much easier, and it will be easier to pay them. But it was so nobody was looking at the money. All those people would enter the movie just to just as a piece of art. Marek Kondrak was calling me and he said, I listened to something. I have to improve something. I said, no, this was perfect. He said, no, I have to improve. He lives in Spain and he would come to Poland to improve the text or to improve the recording. And once we had quite a spectacular situation when the movie. Well, I think we saw it in October, at the end of October, that it went to Berlinale. The selection committee from Berlinale are visiting film institutes in different countries, and they're sending invitations. So Ewa Puszczyńska talked about that, and this is no secret that we were invited to 2 festivals. We were invited to Berlin and Cannes. And it was so that it was autumn, October 2019, and I remember that we were thinking for quite a long time because Cannes didn't want to tell us which section we're in, so we were not sure if it's not like some strange section, but in Berlin we knew that we were in a great section, and Encounters. And we agreed to that. But why am I talking about that? I had something important to say. I will try to. There was some extreme situation.
No nie ma, ale to mogę powiedzieć, coś ja to na to wpadnę. Na przykład tutaj było tak, że jak już to widzieliśmy, że mam zaproszenie.
So to Berlin, when we agreed to go to Berlin, and it was really great. We had the premiere just before COVID. The COVID started 2 weeks after I came back from Berlin, and there were like rooms full of people, etc. So my dog died, and I did something. Probably it's a film industry. The most important festivals in the world, I know Cannes, Berlin, Venice, or Toronto. Toronto, I suppose not. We were there too, but the European ones, they have exclusivity. So if you go to one festival, you cannot go to the other festival. This is like the right, the right of the first night. So if they send the film to Berlin, you cannot move it and touch it anymore, and then the projections are at the level that's just incredible. I've never seen that film in such a way, in a huge room with the quality of sound. What we see in Polish cinemas later, it's incomparable. So my Luśka died. Who was throughout my drawing was sitting on my shoulder, and it sat like this throughout his whole life. And when Luśka died, I decided that I want to draw in the last scene, when the tram is entering the town, and when I take this town and put it in the hole, and I cover it with sand, and I added a heart there, and I wrote Lusia, and Ewa Puszczyńska had to confirm that there was some technical mistake, and they changed it, the DCP. We've managed to do this. I don't know why I tell you this story. It's a long story short. All this was created with Marek Kondrat. Yes, I know what I wanted to tell you. Go back. When we were invited to such an important festival, we didn't know if it will be Berlin or Cannes. We knew that there are 2 A-class, like real A-class festivals. Eva said, Wilku, you have to check this movie. You have to give it to the lawyers, because there was this issue that I drew. The character who was animated by Andrzej Wajda and Irena Kwiatkowska had a very strong resembles to Kaczor Donald and Myszka Miki. And the Mickey Mouse, the Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse. That there was a lot of reference, and we said we had to give it to the lawyers, because of the copyright, etc. And we had a consultation with the best lawyers, and they said, well, there's some of there's one sequence which it gets too close, and if the movie gets no success, of course that doesn't matter at all. However, if the film is successful, any success, then Disney will destroy us financially. And then I came up that old characters will be very similar to Kaczor Donald and Myszka Miki. However, in the very outset, I will draw them differently, with a more sharp beak, and also the mouse, which I worked in TVP Kultura for the first 5 years, and I had my own sort of animated animals there, and I will give them that shape. And it is this element of perception. If you give a certain perception that these characters go beyond that it's more of a stork, and the Mickey Mouse, it's not a Mickey Mouse, it is my mouse. Then even if at the end they're old, you can see that it's Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. You have a different trajectory of perception. Why am I talking about that? Because there was one problem, namely there was also a dog in the corridor, which at some point when Nalepa walks by and Holubek walks by, you can see a dog and it's wagging its dog. I made it on purpose, and I animated this tail so that as if I animated that with Disney animals. You know how they. If you saw Disney films, you would see how they would wag the dog. And Marek Konrad and Kwiatkowska, but my two characters, they were shouting, Pluto. And they said that it can't be like that. You have to change the tail, and you have to change the names. I didn't want to change the tail because it worked well. So we changed the name of the dog, which wasn't so easy, of course, because Andrzej Wajda was already dead, and Irena Kwiatkowska was already dead too. So Marek Konrad did performed a feat. Marek Konrad was living in Spain. He would get on the plane. He came to Warsaw. He didn't want a single penny for that. He came to the studio and he replaced. He said, instead of Pluto, he said Zorka, Zoreczka with the voice of Andrzej Wajda, and then he got back on the plane and came back to Spain. I don't know what are the fees of such great actors, and the fee of an actor who pays his own money. He hops on the plane and goes back to Spain. Such heart really tells a lot about how he believed in that movie. As to Irena Kwiatkowska, it was so that we had a problem because I was wondering how to replace her voice, but there was Helena Zarowicz. I met Helena Zarowicz, and Helena Zarowicz asked for the sentence that Irena Kwiatkowska was supposed to say, and for a week she was learning learning to speak Kwiatkowska, and she also included the replay the words of Pluto, Zorka, Zoreczka. Then we of course processed that on a computer, but that was also incredible. And the bigger, I don't know what was the biggest gift for me, because people entered my movie. Of course, it is my movie. This is the most art house movie in the history of Polish cinematography, like full feature film. But it would not appear. It would not take place were it not for the energy that worked on this. I really wanted to have Gustav Holubek, because for me, Gustav Holubek, I know that Poland was always divided between those who loved Łomnicki and those who loved Holubek. I always loved Holubek, and I always wanted to have Holubek in my movie. I met him too. It was something very important for me. I felt that this actor is like a special person. or Lava Konwicki, like meeting all those actors for me was like Alice in Wonderland. So I met Gustav Holubek. I talked to him and I told him that I really want to play in his movie. And then it happened that Gustav got sick and died. So it was just I would say it was just by chance. I went with Lucia to a doctor to a vet. She had an operation, and I went out in front of the veterinary, and I was waiting for her to get well. And you know, if you have a pet and it has an operation, you know that waiting outside of the vet's office is a very difficult moment in life. I was walking around and I can see Isaac Holubek and I see Janek Holubek, and he started to ask me, "I'm very sorry that his father is not there anymore," and he asked me about the movie. And Janek out of the sudden said, "Would you show me what you have?" I said, "Yes, of course I can show it to you." And Lucia had her operation done. I took Lucia and Janek and we went to my house in the country, and I showed him a sort of animatic. You know what is an animatic? It's a form of in animation. It with me, it's like I have all the protagonists drawn, and I have very simplified movement, but you can see the character. And I showed that to Janek, and then I remember Janek cried, and he said, "I have something for you." And he gave me a gift. He gave me a recording out of the from the filming set of the film Sun and the Shadow, where Konwicki and Holubek are walking around the forest and they're talking. If you haven't seen that film, I think even for today's world, it's a beautiful movie. And Janek gave me a fragment when they already finished recording, and Holubek went privately to Konwicki and told him that gave him a declaration of friendship, private, not played, because in this movie, the Sun and the Shadow, they were repeating that scene. It's a documentary, but you can see that that Holubek had his text prepared, and here he just came up to. There were two old guys. They were like 80 something, and he just said, as if they were to see each other for the last time. And Janek said, "I didn't use that in my movie. It was too strong for me emotionally, and I didn't venture, but I'll give that to you." So Janek gave me something, the most intimate present that he could give. He didn't want to use this. I decided to use it. I had a moral dilemma because of that, because in my movie, Gustav Holubek is my alter ego, the older alter ego who talks to Tadeusz Nalepa, my friend. So here, this moral dilemma consisted in that when Holubek was talking to Nalepa, he would say to Konwicki, he would say "Tadzio, Tadzieńku," and that clicked because I put that in, and I decided that would be transgression of some norms, because he said that to a different Tadeusz, and I know that and even though it worked very well to my movie, I decided to delete all those Tadziu, Tadzieńku, and it stayed like that, and I think it's still very strong and it's very good. So this movie, this is all I want to say. If you want to do something, you really want it, and you want to do something by yourself, and you do not have too high expectations, and you're not waiting for the gold medal, then you really can get that gold medal at the end. And the fact that all these actors entered my project, and I remember there was a conference before the festival in Gdynia where we got Golden Lions, so we won that festival, but we still didn't know that, and there was a question. I remember a few things. I remember it was a different recording. I remember like when Łukasz Maciejewski, the director said to Małgosia Korzochowska, Małgosia, this is your best role in life. She said, thanks, Łukasz. Well, how can you compliment the actor that playing in a cartoon is the best role of their life? And Hira said, I never realized that it's such a great film. I gave them freedom. I didn't tell them how to play. I just told them basic stuff. So you have to be nervous or not nervous, or that you this and that, like some basic stuff. But it was not so that we were repeating the same sentence hundreds of times. So I was talking to Irena Kwaśniewska and Kwiatkowska, and I said, you should play as if you were talking to your husband at your home. You're not on the stage, but you're talking to your husband privately. I remember Kowalski. I think they're all dead. Krzysztof Kowalewski. I said, dear Krzysztof, don't talk like Sułek. Talk it like, say here it in a normal way. You know what? For the first time, somebody asked me that there should not be Sułek. So there was a bit of director. I was telling to Janda, you should be nervous here, etc. With Janda, it's a different story altogether. And they all played because they all had, they all had a huge freedom. In an animated movie, I also had a lot of opportunity, me, and especially man who was responsible for the sound, Franek Kozłowski, an ingenious engineer who got the Eagles and the Gdynia for the best sound. He's an absolute master of the universe. Franciszek Kozłowski, Ucho Studio, that's him. But I also wanted to say that animation gave us some special has a certain advantage over this normal movie, that in the animation we could edit also intonation and what people said. Just like as we could hear Liszt say to replace Pluto with Zorek. In here I have a statement of an actor having 5 doubles. We could put it on the time axis, and we could jump between doubles, so we could change the intonation, and quite often this is how we worked. Not only in case of the role of Andrzej Wajda mixed with Marek Kondrat, but also in the case of actors, in the case of the biggest names, because we could adapt the sound because it was all drawn. I must tell you, because I don't know how to make films, really. No, I do know now, but we did something. I said I'm really in a hurry with the actors to record them, because they used to be very, very old people, and many of them aren't gone already. And but I also made this maneuver, which when I was in Pixar, when they were completing the Coco. I went to Pixar. I went to guest, and I could see places which were like restricted areas. I had a certain proposal, but I will not allow myself to. I will never get chained like that to a corporation. But what they did, when they were drawing the characters first, or the animator records the text which is in the movie, or they take a voiceover artist who reads that out on this. Michał, don't sleep. Yes, sorry. They first draw the movement of the lips, and then of course you make a great event that some great star comes. They make the final voiceover, and that's it. And I wanted to catch all those people, those great artists who were very important for me when I was a child and when I was a young person, who shaped my sensitivity and values, that not everything's for sale. I had to be quick. So I had to be quick, and I started to record voices, and it occurred suddenly that this case caused me to have something great, because I had the acting of the actors, and I were drawing to that. They were inspiring me in a way. They were inspiring me. I had something more that then because I didn't have to come up with gestures, etc. Because it would just spring to my mind. There were such a great characters. If Krystyna Janda, for example, played a character, for me it was an additional bolster. They would give me energy, like they would reciprocate this energy. I felt mm, this cooperation with them. I also, at the stage of animation, I employed. I tried a selection of 15 animators, and we had like 6 people, and I got them from the psychological perspective. That was a very important thing for me because I know them perfectly well, and I will select them just like Miles Davis was selecting. Just like Miles Davis was selecting his musicians, like he preferred somebody with a darker sound or brighter sounds. And let's say this animator has a sarcastic sense of humor. I knew that Kuba Wroński, who was my student, and he's a crazy guy. I knew that to which characters I can adapt him so that he can also add something from himself. So of course, the main voice was mine. I had the final say, and I'm pretty overbearing, but they also had their say. Marta Pajek, she's a great animator of the sort of the middle generation, and she likes certain pathos. So I adapted work to her and gave her. I selected this crew, but this stems from my roots that only musicians influenced me as an artist. Deusz Nalepa or Tomasz Stańko and maybe Professor Stanisław Fiałkowski. So generally, musicians also intuitively, I was selecting the artists just like you would take musicians to a band, and I think it clicked. We had a band, like a musical band. I felt like Tadeusz Nalepa in the best time, in the breakout times, because we were meeting every like 3 times a month with the animators. They were from all around Poland, and Nina was our producer, and that also, I think that was a value because today one of the producers, let's say a producer wants to produce my film, I was joking that I will draw it from Thailand. He said no problem. Okay. Long story short, I can't imagine it like this. For this all to have sense, you need, in order to talk, in order to have total communication, full communication, you have to meet. Of course, we would meet. Of course, sometimes they would not be happy because they would come from Szczecin, from Poznań, Marta, who's a real star, she would come to Kraków, from Olsztyn, Agnieszka Borowa, from all around Poland they would come to Łódź, but it made sense really, because then we would sit, we would read something, but also we would talk, everybody would come up with something. So what I want to say, we've managed to do something like this, that these people who are always in kill it and leave this town, they never had a situation like that. It's always some sort of open space or similar. I do have a very well colleague, my former student, who was a very important character. He's a producer, a renowned now already of short animated movies, and because I'm a bit of an alien myself, he gives me this comfort that when we made the post-production, I communicated with him. I always told him what I want, etc., etc., and Piotr then, with the whole team, would communicate that to them. Of course, the first 7-8 years when I was making this film alone, only Jarek Barzan, a great editor, but also a different person from me. I tried to surround myself with people who are different from me, because I feel that an artist should always challenge himself. There should always be some sort of a conflict. But he makes very different movies. He makes good commercial movies, romantic comedies, etc. And it was super, because I would take an editor who would be too all touchy-feely. It would not work. And you have to work with people with whom you can sort of you who have different perspectives. When I started with Borowski, I said, "Oh, I hate Tadeusz Nalepa," and I knew it's gonna be good because I know I have to convince him. I have to struggle with him because, of course, finally it's not a struggle because I have the final say. But that's not how you should work. So I knew that there will be some conflict, there will be some struggle, and that's great. And Piotr Szczepanowicz is such that he would like he would circle everything with about bio and he would keep the animators there. Of course, all animators got freedom from me; they could all work from home, which Piotr Szczepanowicz said that it's going to be problematic, and there was a problem with discipline. But I do think that we trusted each other quite well. No other film was made like that. Tobie Rosicki, I don't think so, but I think in general it doesn't work like that for in a longer run. We will work like this for in such a team for 4 years. I think I can tell it. I had one extremely talented animator. I do have my former student, Marta Magnuska. She was so good that her film was, for example, in Cannes several years ago. So that proves some level. And when she was entering my team, she was in the 3rd year. In our school, it's possible and it's accepted that you employ your students and you can pay them. So Marta was drawing, and I remember Marta was entering this team really scared because it was full of people who had experience, like professionals, really good professionals. And she was a student, and I remember that she was drawing like 3 seconds a month, and it wasn't enough. And at some point, there was like a breakthrough, a beautiful breakthrough, and she grew up to be one of the leaders of the team. Especially with the new movie, she will be one of the leading animators. But I want to say what the consequences were when I gave them more freedom. Marta would say, "Boss, I'm leaving now." "Marta, where are you leaving?" "We're finishing the movie." She said, "Because I fell in love." And she left for, I remember, 7 months to Vietnam with her fiance. But she promised me that when she will come back, everything will be done. Yes, of course. I mean, I had to trust her because we were past schedule. If she failed, I mean, if she didn't keep her promise, I would not be. This film would not be created because I would find no animator who would do what she could do because everybody had to be very deeply in the character of the protagonist. We communicated very well. I wouldn't be able to do that with new person. Of course, there are people there are no irreplaceable people, but with time they become irreplaceable, especially on tight schedules. And yes, really, Marta came, and she did everything, and she did everything on time. And the film worked. The fiancé didn't work. So film is much more important, as you can see. Why am I talking about that? Because we made a movie. We won all those festivals, etc. But there was nothing like that. I said, first I need to apply to PIS. I need to get 500 million. I need to get the producer because otherwise I don't know what to do. Because we are a proof. This might be cheeky, of course. That I'm a proof that you can do it. That you can be from outside of the industry, outside of some business relations, and you can make a film. You might not have money in the beginning, but if you want to do it, you will do it. And animation is this special medium that you can do everything. When you're looking at how Magnus is having this I'm watching Magnus work. I will hear outside running around with a camera, 5 million, 20 guys on this, and I'm thinking that's great. I'm able to draw it at home within a week. On the table like that, some water, and that's the strength of animation. That's not true that it has to be niche, that it has to go only to festivals where you have like 100 authors, 15 volunteers, and maybe somebody will come to watch the films. I would say actually that we, we managed to pull off such a trick that we made a film. When I remember the Eagles Award, and I remember those directors winner whom I know, and they ask, what is it all about? What is it about this year? I talk to them, and they talk about different things they will be making films about because they made the research. No, we're making our own things. I will not make a. Maybe in animation you can do it because what you will research today, when you will finish your movie in 10 years' time, it's not valid anymore. But in general. And what about Kill It and Leave This Town? I mean, sometimes the miracle has happened because I completed the Kill It and Leave This Town. I went to Roman Gutek myself. Wouldn't they like to distribute that movie? And he watched that movie with Marcin Pienkowski. I said, they will think about it. Okay. That New Horizons can distribute us. So I thought that I will bite my hand off out of happiness that somebody will show it into the cinema. Maybe they will show it in Łódź 3 times, maybe in Rzeszów 3 times because it's the town of Tadeusz Nalepa. That's incredible that it will go to the cinema and people will buy tickets and know that it's a festival and people just come because it's a festival. And later there was a premiere in Berlin. It's a difficult movie. Who saw Kill It and Leave This Town? It's a difficult movie. And there was a premiere, and after premiere, and there was a room for 1,000 people, and that's where my life changed because Roman Gutek came up to me after the premiere and said that this movie is like Tarkowski, that he offers that Gutek film will be promoting that and distributing that. I went crazy of happiness. I'm the viewer of Gutek film. Everybody knows that this had that logo. Jarmusch, the best movies, Gutek film, and they said you will be in a week in cinemas, and the film is still on for 1.5 years. We've been their second box office movie. The film nobody would bet on. It's a difficult movie. As an author, I would say it's for people 35 plus, 40 plus. It's about death, about such things. It might be understood only by a person who lost somebody who's close. Usually, it's the older persons who lose their close people. And the piece didn't want to know what is Kill It and Leave This Town, and they made a focus group who would come on this film, and it occurred that almost 70% are people who are young, between 18 and 30, and within this group 70% are young women. So this film went across all the market. During the meetings in Poland, I had like 70 of them in Poland. I went from Jelenia Góra to Szczecin, Białystok, Gdańsk, Rzeszów, Kraków. Quite often I would ask people questions. Well, you're so young. I see kids sitting there like Olivka, 20 years old, and I say, what do you like in this movie? And they said for things that was surprising me. They would say, music. You can hear that the music was the music of the generation. It was something more than the music, like Breakout. And they quite often said, it's a world we believe we do not experience, and it's incredible. It's so touching, and this archaic movie, an old school type of movie. Michał, what do you call those old films? The old school. That suddenly the kids are buying that. Nobody expected it. I'm not trying to boast here. I'm just trying to tell you, believe your dreams. If it's in accordance with what you do, don't look at everything will work out. I'm absolutely convinced about that. I don't know if is it Jagoda Szec? I think she's working today, but you can ask her. She said that after she went to the film school because she heard interview with me and where I said you can do everything. Yes, you can. I don't know what to say more. What time is it? I still have a few minutes left. Do you have questions, maybe? Hello. I wanted to ask about one thing. I'm sorry, I didn't see the film yet, but I heard a lot of good things about it. I wanted to ask about the practical side of animation. If you could say about. If I will be able to answer, I will. What I mean is, I know it's made frame by frame, but I saw that there are like long backgrounds. How did you reanimated that again additionally in the computer, or is it drawn by? Is there like a sequence which is of frames? If I understand the question, you're asking about the backgrounds, yes, the movement of the background, etc. How did it work? You know what? Of course, it depends, but all the drawings that are in the movies, there I drew that. Quite often, these drawings were they were exhibited in Zachęta, for example. You could see some of them, but there will be also an exhibition in the Cinematography Museum. Some drawings were drawn on paper 5 meters per 1 meter. That was crazy, of course. I mean, you just go on the through the camera on the along the city. You don't do like any tricks, but it depends on your emotional state, what you want to show. If you want to show a certain feeling of anxiety, of nervousness, then yeah, then you loop such a city, because then some things like that start to work. You know, all the trams that were going around like me, it was done by me. It was cut out, the shape was cut out, but everything was moved on the computers. It wasn't done by hand, all these movements. It was the mastery of Piotr Szczepanowicz who cooperated with me on that project, who was able to do that all by hand. But if I did it by hand, if I try to do it myself, because if when you draw it yourself, you say that you can do it like this, like that. But if you, I mean, I could do it by hand, but that could take like 20 years. You could do everything. You could do all these things. We connected. We didn't do light artificially. We made a flare with the handheld light, and when there was a discotheque, I got this discotheque ball, and we were recording the real reflections. But that was included. That was put in. It was not that it's on the set design. So Piotr did that on all the computers. Or, for example, the fact that my whole film consists of a certain pieces of paper on a tape. It was true, because I drew a small image, and then I missed something, and I added and glued it together and drew on, and that's how it was created from the point of view of the content and the form. But some were done in a different way. Some were I got when I was drawing a city, I drew other things too at the same time. So why am I talking about this? There were pressures. I will not tell you who. That we got rid of those tapes, of the sticky tapes, and I really wanted them to stay. This will not sell. I don't care. I said I want it like that, and I even bought special lamps, like Chinese lamps. I paid 1,500 zlotys, and we were trying to shine the light from the angle to get the texture to see those tapes. We were also doing it in such a way that if we had a table, there was a city spread out on the table, and we were cutting this into pieces, and we were filming it with a normal diffused light from four sides, then with the lamps low on one side, the lamps on the other side, in order, and the camera was fixed on the drawing. So we tried that to be able to operate also with the relief, with the of this collated image. Sometimes, if something was on something was on a smooth paper, and we copied, we actually cheated. We added electronically the tapes because 3/4 of the materials were on the cut papers, and we needed a town over which I was sitting 2-3 weeks. I wouldn't be able to draw it again, so we did it on the computer. Piotrek was able to put it in. To paste it in such a way that you had an impression that this paper is cut into pieces. So all the putting together of this was made on a computer. So yeah, it was done digitally. Also neons and these lights were made on the computers. But I also ordered a neon like this. So we first filmed it, then we copied that in and propagated it digitally. So it was a combined hybrid method. But thanks to this virtuosity of Piotr, it was made in such a way that I think only extreme specialists, 3D specialists, see that this is done on the computer, etc. In general, I can't see it myself. It's a true mastery. And that's what I wanted to achieve. I wanted all that to look like a manual work. So we sometimes spoil the material to make it look like a manual labor, like manually done. I don't know about the software, but it was like a whole team of people working on that. 10 graphic designers. Yeah. Any more questions? I would want to ask one more thing. What is the format you draw on? It depends. Here we had a problem because when I'm drawing, I don't think that it will be redrawn. Well, that's another thing. 97% of Kill It and Leave This Down was drawn or normal transparent papers, just like so on pieces of paper like Xerox paper, 14 zlotys per sheet. But in school, in film school, like in every film school where you have animation, you can sort of cut it to shape. So we're drawing on a paper. I was adamant about that because I'm after I graduated from a fine arts academy. My students said right now that you can draw like that on tablets, that it looks like a paper. If it's identical, let's make it on tablets. Why make it like difficult? But I still prefer to draw it, of course, on the paper. So we drew it on paper. And what was your question? About formats. Formats, various formats. So, for example, there's a scene where I'm walking around the city like a giant, and the character was like this, and that was a problem. It was negative because when I was drawing, I would draw them too big, and I really wanted to. If you draw a big format, you can get more details in. It's a different character of drawing, so they would curse me under their breaths because I really wanted to. We sometimes put it on A4. Let's see, this character can be done on A4. You can diminish it, etc. We designed like a big character and we redraw it in A4, but it's a different character of stroke when you draw like that. So with some transcriptions on A4, it doesn't matter, and you could draw like that. But with some, I really wanted to get the characters to be bigger, because otherwise there's a problem with filming. Because normally you have A4 and you have this. You put like a contraption on which you put a piece of paper, you take a picture, then you put another one, take a picture. When you had a bigger character, you had like you have to bolt those pieces of paper, you have to glue them together. But these are like a good animator can deal with that. In general, when I'm drawing, of course, some things there's almost none of that in the movie. When Jadwiga, or the person who's voiced by Kristen Janda, she goes crazy. She runs out and she's running up the stairs on the white and red flags. She's running away. I drew that. It's like it was 150 by 120 centimeters. I don't know why. I don't really know why I did it that way. That's how we drew. So I have nothing like that. Everything is designed in such a way. Of course, that's not professional, and that makes life really hard. But it's different when you draw, when you have to get in format in which you shoot, and a different one when you get a totally different quality if you just let it go and you do it big. Of course, the only question is how you can translate that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The most difficult scene. Oh, you haven't seen the movie, so or the Gullivers on the beach. It got rendered for. I will tell you. There's a scene. There's a like a water. The Gullivers on the beach. The camera goes away, moves away, and of course there are ships somewhere in the background, and it fade out. It's like mega master shot. With the best computers in Netco Film, which was one of the best animation companies, they rendered it in 3 days. This one shot, and it was so that there was some. This company was in the middle of Warsaw, and there was some sort of a problem with power, and they put it over the long weekend to render it, and they came in after the weekend, and they had to make it once again. Quality has to weigh. Any more questions? You're asleep already. You don't have any more questions. Tomasz Siwiński, our renowned animator who will destroy me with this question. No, I was wondering because we didn't talk about it before, that how many minutes, or in terms of time percentage, how much of the material was removed? The longest animatic, it was shown in the Zachęta. Many people came to see that. It was 118 minutes, and Kill It has 88 minutes altogether, so 30 minutes. So of the realized animation, no, it was so that some of it was not completed. Oh, you mean the complete animations that were deleted? Whoa, that's a tough question. I would have to calculate. I think it's about 10 minutes of ready animation, because I was wondering. Of course, it was done in a way which was slightly non-standard, but I was wondering if somebody prepared such a budget and would calculate how many minutes have to be down there. You always make some buffers, let's say 10% more or something like that, for the money to assume a bit more than normally. So in that case, that would have to be 20% maybe. I don't know. The last scenes were deleted. When they deleted them, I don't know how it was budgeted, because it was done by Ewa Puszczyńska from some moment and Agnieszka Ścibor, and they produced it. So I didn't deal with that at all. But the last scenes, the last thing that I wanted to make was the one with Lucia. And I made was this heart and Lucia and this final change just before the Berlin Festival. But I was watching that movie. It was before we sent that DCP to Berlin, and I felt that something is still too heavy, that something has to be changed in my movie, and I didn't know how. I just felt, but I couldn't do anything. I put it all together. I told that during the classes here, but the film is an operation on the open. How we're working with emotions, then I've been be killed by a mosquito. I cry, etc. But then it's speculation. It's just sort of moving the bricks around so that everything works well together. It's just editing, and I felt that something is wrong, and I didn't know what. Ewa Puszczyńska would say that this and that, and then I agreed with something. I didn't agree with something else, but I knew that something is wrong, and I know that it will be incredible. but I dreamt of Nalepa. I had a dream about Nalepa. We were friends for 27 years. He was the most important man in my life, and he, he, when he when he tried to uh, get me, he told me, Dariusz, you have to add this here, this scene at the end, and this one has to be deleted. And that was my dream. I got up in the morning. I remembered I have a notebook next to my bed, and I just noted down the scenes. I called the editor, Jacek Barzai, but I didn't tell him I had a dream about Nalepa, but I said, let's just, I came something into my mind, and Jarek came to me. That was another, an interesting thing when we worked on that movie, is that Jarek Barzan, who's one of the most sought after Polish editors, you know, when you edit feature, you know, you get the editor on the set, and then you edit it for a month, and after a month it's finished. With me it was like this, that we had the key bought for editing. You pay something for the key so that it's not illegal, and Jarek would come to me, because I'm lucky to live between Milanówek and Podkowa in Warsaw, and he lives in Brwinów. He would just come to me for 2 hours, and he edited something. He wanted to edit some serious cinema, commercial cinema, and in 5 days he would come to me, and we would do it again. And he said, "Okay, listen, I'll come in the morning because later I have something else." And he came and edited something, and I saw this after he left, and I said, "It clicks." And at the end of the Jarek, I will tell you, Tadek Nalepa, I had a dream about him, and he told me, and he was right. Something I couldn't come up with. It is so, Tomek, that we removed. This is what I wanted to say. It's an extremely important thing, and it's a paradox, which I also learned. I wasn't aware of that. From my movie, Kill It and Leave This Town, I deleted 2 best scenes, 2 absolutely best scenes. They were presented in the form of non-animated form in Zachęta. I know that it's not humble, but for me it was like 2 absolutely virtuosic scenes which caused the movie to be worse. But I could not agree with that. I just couldn't. Whenever told me maybe this or that, I said no. And I think that was a huge lesson for me, that sometimes you have to delete something that is the best. Of course, I don't know how it is in terms of cost, but they were already animated. They weren't colored yet, because I decided there will be no color. So they're on the matrix. There are like 5 discs. I will take them to the new film, and it was so difficult, because it's extremely difficult when you sit on something for a very long time. One scene was, we called it the conductors, were in the wagon, Wajda's character and Tomasz Stańko meet on a train, and Janusz Kondratyuk characters meet on the train. I think we managed to duplicate Bareja. And one scene is really fantastic, and there's the other scene is when I meet Zbigniew Boniek on the street. I'm from Łódź, and he was the hero of our courtyards, of the backyards in Łódź, and these were, it was like real finesse. These 2 scenes were 6 minutes long. They were animated. I think 10-15 minutes were deleted altogether of ready animation, and about 15 minutes of animatic. Do we finish? Yes, I was interested because I've been. You were talking about your future film, and I was wondering. What you can tell more, the method of work or recording of protagonists? No, you know what, the method of work, what I will want to retain, and I will retain it. I must tell you that my situation changed. I want it to be a bit natural. The producers come to me and tell me they want to produce.
Natomiast ja bym chciał, znaczy wiem, z kim chcę to zrobić, zresztą z tą osobą jestem posłowie, zresztą nie ma co ukrywać, to z Ewą Puszczyńską.
I would want to do that with Ewa Puszczyńska, of course, but I want to do it in such a way that I want to retain this state as long as possible, which is similar to when I did Kill It and Leave This Town.
Chcę mieć jak najdłużej wolność.
I want to be free as long as possible, like totally free, that I'm not restricted by anything. Then we, of course, there's production process, etc., etc. But I think that how it's gonna work,
Bardzo podobnie.
I think I would want to play it out in a similar way. The difference is that in Kill It, I would add things and add things and add things and add things. I met Vaida, it inspired me. I met Yanda, it inspired me. I know what it does mean for the what means for the Polish culture, that they have their emploi, the certain image of them in our collective awareness. It also translated to my movie. When you watch my film and you hear the discussion between Wajda and Kwiatkowska, you have the Wajda's the sewer, or this film will be different about a certain withdrawal, not the withdrawal that I'm off. I'm. It's that's enough. I'm gonna die. No, I'm just saying that not all that glitters is gold. I saw that glitter. I saw it from close up, and I want to find value somewhere else. And this is what this movie will be about. I think this will be a great script because for me, a gorge is if it touches me. In Kill It and Leave This Town, there were a few scenes that I was afraid to touch. I knew, like the last discussion, the last talk with my mother, I knew that it has to be done. I attempted to write it for half a year, several words, but whenever I started, it was just too much for me. And the same was with the drawing of that last discussion with my mother. It was like the last scene in the movie. I was afraid of it. It was very strong for me emotionally, and I can add that it was incredible. So because when we drew, I was drawing my mother, and the rest was drawn by animator. I couldn't believe that anybody else would draw my mother, but I was drawn by the animator. And the mother of the animator when she was drawing that, she got cancer. I asked her, "Do you still want to draw it?" And she said, "Yes, just because of that, I want to draw it." Thankfully, they managed to cure the mother. So I would want to draw in a very similar way the next film. I think it's going to be much quicker. But yes, I wouldn't want to change anything. Maybe we'll make it on tablets if it occurs that the tablets give the same capabilities. I want to make a part of it so that Disney would think, wow, they're doing this 3D in such a nice way. But it's gonna be different. It's gonna be totally different. I think it's gonna be more touching. From Zabi. What did I talk about? I felt some of the scenes, and that was a gauge for me. And people were talking about that scene for a very long time. They talked about that scene as a key scene, and I have 3 scenes like that here. I tried to write them yesterday and today. No. I mean, it sort of destroys me. I can feel how difficult it is for me. It means that I hope we'll end up within 6 years. What I can say is that I have a beautiful music of Tomasz Stańko for this film, who wrote it especially for me and recorded it especially. I don't have voices recorded. I'm not. I mean, in case of Zabi, we had to get a hold of the recordings of those older people. It's not the case anymore in this case. On the case of this film, I will have Zbigniew Boniek who recorded. He will be one of the protagonists. Okay, thank you. Thank you. What can I say? If you haven't seen the film, go and see it. Thank you very much. If you have any more questions, I'm at your service. If not, thank you.